The village of Umwala used to be a place where celebration was the norm, a place where traditions ran deep and every tree seemed to hold the whispers of ancestors. But there was a silence here now, a heavy quiet that clung to the red earth and dusty paths like a shadow. For 10 years no daughter of Umwala had walked down the aisle. No wedding bells had rung. No bride had worn the shimmering white of hope, nor had a groom lifted a bride's veil with a smile. The village was caught in a strange drought, not of rain or crops but of love and union. Suitors still came, hopeful and determined, their families promising gifts and feasts. But one by one weddings dissolved before they could begin. Some grooms disappeared without a trace as if swallowed by the earth itself. Others fell suddenly ill, confined to their mats for months, their faces drawn with pain. A few fled under the cover of night, abandoning not only their brides but their families, leaving behind rumors and broken hearts. The people of Umwala whispered of a curse, an ancient wrath that had been stirred and now hung over the village like a thick fog. The elders, their faces lined with worry and age, spoke only in cryptic phrases. They claimed the gods were angry, though no one dared ask why. Mothers hugged their daughters tightly and wept silently by the fireside, afraid of the future, afraid of the unknown. Adanna, a fiery 17-year-old with eyes bright as the morning sun, grew tired of the silence. She remembered a time when the village was alive with laughter and music, when wedding celebrations painted the night in colors of joy. Now those memories felt like stories from a faraway land, like they belonged to someone else's life. One afternoon, as she swept leaves near her grandmother's compound, a gentle breeze stirred a trail of white feathers that danced teasingly toward the grove behind the house. The grove was ancient, wild with tangled trees and creeping vines. Children were warned never to enter, told stories of spirits and curses that guarded the place. "Don't go there, Adanna," her grandmother Mama Nena had warned. "The grove holds things better left alone." But the feathers beckoned her, and the curiosity burning inside her would not be quenched. Heart-pounding, she slipped past the fence and into the shade of the towering iroko trees, their bark cracked and weathered like the faces of forgotten elders. The grove was quiet, too quiet. The only sound was the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of a hawk. Adanna's fingers brushed over the earth beneath the largest iroko tree, where the ground was oddly sunken. She knelt and began to dig with her bare hands, the soil loose and dry. After several moments, her fingers hit something hard, smooth, worn wood beneath the dirt. With a mixture of fear and determination, she cleared the earth until the edge of a small coffin was exposed. Hands trembling, Adanna lifted the coffin's heavy lid. Inside lay a wedding dress, pristine despite the years it had been buried. Its lace was delicate and unbroken, the fabric glowing faintly in the dim light that filtered through the branches. Alongside it rested a necklace of red beads and a blackened wedding ring, worn and tarnished with age. But there was no body, no sign of the woman who had once worn these sacred items. A sudden gust of wind swept through the grove, scattering the feathers and rustling the leaves. Distant drums echoed faintly, growing louder with each heartbeat. But there was no one to play them. From the edge of the grove came a voice, a sharp cry that pierced the stillness. "Mama!" Adanna dropped the coffin lid and spun around. Her grandmother stumbled into the clearing, eyes wide with horror at the sight of the dress in Adanna's hands. A scream tore from her throat, raw and broken, and she collapsed onto the earth. Adanna rushed to her side, heart pounding as she cradled her grandmother's shaking form. That night, as shadows danced on the walls and the village slept uneasily, Mama Nena muttered a name over and over. "Obianuju. Obianuju." Her voice was barely audible, but the weight of her words hung heavy in the room. "You have opened what we buried with silence," she whispered, her eyes fluttering closed. Adanna sat beside her grandmother, the wedding dress folded carefully on the floor. The wind outside howled like a restless spirit, and somewhere deep in the village, a lone drum beat softly, waiting. The mystery of Umwala's silence was no longer buried. It had begun to stir. The fire crackled softly in the small hut, casting flickering shadows across the worn wooden walls. Outside, the village of Umwala seemed to hold its breath, as if the past itself was pressing close. Adanna sat by her grandmother, Mama Nena, who was wrapped in a faded cloth, her hands trembling slightly as she traced the patterns on the wedding dress folded carefully nearby. The air felt thick with unspoken words, a silence deeper than the night. Finally, Mama Nena's eyes opened, clouded with age but sharp as a hawk's. "You must know the story of Obianuju," she said, voice low but steady, "for it is the heart of our village's sorrow." Adanna leaned in, eager yet cautious. "Obianuju was once the brightest flower of Umwala," Mama Nena began, "the maiden every father wished to marry off well. She was beautiful, more beautiful than the dawn light on the red earth, and kind, with a spirit as free as the river that winds beyond the hills. Obianuju was promised to marry the son of Chief Ezemuo, the village's powerful leader and keeper of the sacred spiritual legacy. The chief's son was a quiet, serious young man named Ikamafuna, destined to inherit the mantle of village priest and protector. It was an honor, Mama Nena said, but also a chain. For the chief's son must marry to preserve the lineage, to keep the spiritual blessings flowing through Umwala. No one questioned this, until Obianuju's heart spoke against it. Obianuju loved another. His name was Chuka, a blacksmith's apprentice, strong with hands rough from the forge but eyes soft with love for her. Their bond was secret, whispered in the cool nights by the fire, a love forbidden by the elders who saw Chuka as unworthy and dangerous to the village's sacred future. The elders forbade her, Mama Nena said, her voice thick with regret. They said love was a luxury that could not threaten tradition. But Obianuju would not be bound by their chains. The wedding day arrived, a bright morning that carried the promise of new beginnings. Yet before dawn Obianuju disappeared. Her dress, carefully folded and left in her room. Her jewelry, the red beaded necklace and the blackened wedding ring, were found on her dressing table. But no Obianuju. Alongside these items, a letter lay in her hand, its ink faded but words sharp as a knife. "You sacrifice love for your customs. But love is the soul of life. I will not be a prisoner of your traditions." Mama Nena's eyes shone with tears. No one knew where she had gone. The village searched, but only silence answered. Then the elders gathered. What followed was a secret no one spoke of openly. The elders were desperate, Mama Nena whispered. The village's blessings depended on the chief's line. Without a proper marriage, they feared disaster, failed crops, sickness, the end of Umwala's prosperity. Obianuju's fate was sealed in darkness. They caught her trying to flee, Mama Nena said, her voice trembling, and in fear and fury, the elders performed a ritual, an ancient binding rite meant to preserve the spiritual legacy at any cost. Obianuju was killed. Her body was never found, but the elders sealed her spirit's wrath in a coffin beneath the ancient iroko tree. Her wedding dress, the necklace, the ring, they were buried with her, symbols of a life and love stolen. The curse was born from this act, Mama Nena said, her eyes locking with Adanna's. The belief was clear. As long as no bride wore a wedding dress in Umwala, as long as no marriage took place, Obianuju's rage would remain asleep. But if disturbed, she would rise to claim what was taken from her. The weddings, the joy, the daughters' futures. That was why, Mama Nena confessed, every marriage that came close failed. The spirit whispered doubt into the hearts of grooms, brought sickness, fear, and despair. Sometimes a groom vanished as if spirited away by the winds. Sometimes weddings dissolved before they even began. The elders kept this secret buried, Mama Nena said, voice breaking, protecting the village with silence and fear. But you found the dress. Adanna clenched her fists, the weight of truth settling heavy on her shoulders. I won't live in fear, she said, voice steady despite the chill that crept along her spine. I want to break the curse. We need to face what was done and find a way to heal. Mama Nena looked at her granddaughter with a mixture of hope and dread. Be careful, child. The spirit is restless now. The curse is more than anger. It is sorrow, betrayal, and rage woven into one. That night, as Adanna lay in bed, the wind whispered secrets through the cracks of her window. A faint sound, laughter soft and haunting, floated through the air, echoing among the trees. She sat up, heart pounding. On her bed lay a bridal veil, white as fresh snow and shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The veil was not hers. A chill ran down her spine as the laughter faded into the night, leaving behind a silence heavier than before. Adanna whispered into the darkness, Obianuju, if you can hear me, I'm not afraid. The village of Umwala slept uneasily, unaware that the past had come alive, and that the battle for its future had just begun. The dreams began on the third night after the veil appeared. Adanna would wake each morning drenched in sweat, her throat dry, her heart pounding with a grief she had never lived, but somehow remembered. In her dreams, a barefoot bride walked across the red clay path that led through the heart of Umwala, her white gown trailing behind like a shroud. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, her lips trembling as she asked the same question again and again. Will no one fight for my love? Adanna would always try to reach her to answer, but the wind would rise like a wall, blowing her back away into waking. By the fifth dream she stopped running. She began to listen. It was time for the village to do the same. The council sat in a circle beneath the great Udala tree, their faces drawn with age and history. The meeting was meant to be private, but word had spread. Adanna had called it, and she came not as a child of Umwala, but as its reckoning. She stood at the center, clutching the red beaded necklace that had once belonged to Obianuju. Her voice was firm. I know what happened 10 years ago, she began. I know why our daughters cannot marry. Why our joy withers before the altar. And I know who paid the price for your silence. The elders shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Others scowled. Chief Okoro, head of the council, cleared his throat. This is dangerous talk, girl. You are meddling in matters you do not understand. Adanna turned to her grandmother, who stood a few paces behind her. Tell them, she said. Mama Nena stepped forward. Her voice was quieter, hoarse with age, but every syllable fell like a stone into still water. I was there, she said. I was one of them. Gasps rippled through the circle. I held her arms, Mama Nena continued, tears filling her eyes. I told myself I was preserving our lineage, our traditions. I thought I was protecting the village. But I helped murder a girl who only wanted to love freely. She dropped to her knees. I have buried that shame every day since. But we cannot bury truth. Not anymore. More silence. Then one by one other elders lowered their heads. Old Ezyalike, the former healer, whispered, She begged us. She wept. And still he could not finish. Adanna's voice cracked the quiet like thunder. Then help me make it right. The new moon arrived with a stillness that felt like breath held too long. At dusk the villagers heard it, distant but unmistakable. The thrum of a wedding drum. No one played it. No ceremony was planned. Yet the rhythm was clear, summoning. It came from the grove. Adanna, wrapped in the ancient wedding dress, walked alone into the dark. The path glowed silver in the moonlight. The trees whispered as she passed, and white feathers floated from unseen places, landing gently at her feet. She followed them. At the base of the iroko tree, the air grew cold. The coffin still lay open beside the disturbed soil, its contents removed, but its history intact. The drumming stopped. Adanna stood in the clearing and spoke aloud, "Obianudu, I am here." The wind shivered. A shape rose from the shadows, luminous, sorrowful, regal. Obianuju's ghost appeared, not as a vengeful wraith, but as a bride untouched by time. Her face was serene, but her eyes held centuries of sorrow. "You wear my shame," the spirit said. "Do you know what it means to be forgotten?" Adanna nodded. "They buried you. Your body, your name, your truth. But I'm here to change that." Obianuju's voice was soft, like river water lapping against stones. "They took my love and offered me tradition. They took my voice and left me silence. So I took their joy. I buried every wedding they tried to celebrate, just as they buried mine." The trees trembled. The air turned heavy. "But I will stop," the spirit continued. "If one thing is done, tell them the truth. Speak my name in the open. Build me a shrine not to worship, but to remember. A girl should not die for choosing love." Adanna stepped forward. "I promise. We will remember. You won't be buried in silence again." Obianuju smiled, softly, sadly. "Then let Mwala dance again." And just like that, the grove fell still. The feathers scattered in the wind. The spirit faded. The next morning, Adanna stood before the entire village. She wore no veil, no crown, no beads. Only her truth. From the youngest child to the oldest elder, the people gathered to hear what had never been spoken aloud. Adanna told the full story of Obianuju's love, the forbidden romance, the ritual, the curse, and the silence that followed. She did not spare names. She did not soften details. When she finished, she placed the red beaded necklace on a carved wooden post at the center of the grove, where the coffin had once been. Around it they built a shrine, not elaborate but honest. Flowers were planted, a bench placed, a plaque inscribed. "Here lies the memory of Obianuju. She chose love and was silenced. We speak her name now and always." The villagers wept. And for the first time in a decade, those tears were not of fear, but of release. They named the day, the Festival of Truth. No more wedding rituals were postponed. No more girls wept behind doors. The curse was broken not with spells, but with remembrance. A year later, wedding drums echoed in Mwala, not from unseen spirits but from joy. Adanna stood beside her best friend, Amaka, who beamed beneath a crown of white coral. The village danced. Children laughed. The wind no longer carried secrets. As the bride walked past the iroko tree, a single white feather floated down, landing gently on her path. Adanna smiled and whispered, "Thank you, Obianuju." And for the first time in 10 years, Mwala celebrated not a haunting but a beginning.